Hey BookTube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you're new to me and it's the first time you're seeing my face, hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening today. If you are not new to me, thank you for always tuning in, the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So as you can see from today's title of the video, I have a recommendations video for you, and it is all about firsts. I thought it was only fitting, since this is my first recommendation video back to BookTube since coming back, that it be on the first time experience. You know, giving the V card away, popping the cherry, whatever euphemism you want to use. We are talking about your first sexual experience. Every book I'm about to recommend has a first time experience at some level of kink. So without further ado, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking about some of my firsts. All right. Before we get into the recommendations, I want to let you guys know why I pay attention to firsts in books. I actually do. In romance books, when there is a first time experience, this is a moment where I will actually sit down and slow my reading and really, really pay attention, because I want to remember it. This is a moment that I believe in everybody's life they should remember. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether you're indifferent, it's a first. You can never get it back. And there's so many firsts in a human's life that you will never remember. You will never remember your first step. You can't most people don't remember their first word. There's a lot of human firsts that we don't get to remember, and this is one. This first is one that we can remember, and we can kind of usually control our experience with it. And I just love talking. I love when I talk with my girlfriends, hearing about their first time, because it's so interesting how everybody's is similar, but at the same time, it's completely different. And it's just so humanizing, and I love this fact. So in romance books, I definitely pay attention to these scenes. And that's why all the books I'm about to recommend, I've actually gone back and reread the first scene, so I know exactly the feeling that goes with it, so I can recommend it to you in a better way. Now I have 5 recommendations, leveling in from graphic, less graphic to the most graphic, and that's how I'm gonna go recommending them. I'm not gonna give you my star values on the books when I read them. I'm just recommending the book based off of it, but I have read every single one of these books, and if you've been following for any amount of time, some of these will look very, very familiar to you. So let's get started. The first book I have here is Highlanders Sword by Amanda Forrester. This is a historical Scottish romance that I read recently, and this first experience was adorable. We follow Peyton and Isla and Peyton are in an arranged marriage, and they find out about the arranged marriage literally the day that they're getting married. Peyton agrees to it based solely off of Isla's looks, and Isla, who was raised knowing that she was going to become a nun, is now completely transfixed and said, "You're going to be a wife." So her first time experience, automatically off the bat, we're thinking is going to be, what the hell's going on? But throughout this book, which does feature a miscommunication trope, I just want to preface that, but the miscommunication trope really works with the plot of this book, because it is a major factor in this book. These two people are complete and total strangers. They know nothing about each other. So their miscommunication is literally the fact that they don't know how to respond to each other, and they're never given a moment to really talk to each other and figure out what each other are about. Now, because it is historical romance, there is the historical context element that was utilized really, really well in this book. The status symbols, the allowances for women at this time frame, all of these were done really, really well in this book. However, this also suffers from the coitus interruptus trope, but it lends to that first time experience when we finally get it. On a spice rating, this is kind of a 1. It's not very spicy, it's very minimal, very flowery. We don't have many sex scenes. Actually, we have the sex scene. There is one, and it is towards the end of the book. But all of these coitus interruptus moments really build up to that moment. And when that moment happens, it's so true to point. It's so comical, and it's so endearing, and it's so loving. It's adorable. It's super, super sweet. But the moment I really want to preface in this book is actually not the sex scene. There is a coitus interruptus moment where we're really getting to it. We are about to hit it. And Isla stops and says, I need a minute. And Peyton's like, I can't really stop right now. Like, really? And she says, no, I don't want to stop this. I just need to take another minute, because literally 2 days ago, I was believing I was going to become a nun, and now I'm having sex for the first time and I have no idea what's going to happen to me. Amanda Forrester wrote the fear, the intimidation, the shyness, the vulnerability. She wrote all those characteristics into Isla, and she wrote the compassion of Peyton, understanding that this is completely new for her. The emotions that she wrote into these characters in these moments, I want to point out, because it is so endearing. It makes this story, and it's so nice, because a first time is scary. It can be really, really intimidating, even for people who wait later on in their life and aren't young. It can be scary. You can know exactly what's going to happen to you and still feel that kernel of, after this moment, I'm never going to be the same again. And I love the fact that that was written into the story. Now, that moment is not the actual moment, but it was still there, and we got to see it. We got to see that fear, but also the same time, when the moment happens, we get to see the excitement. She's already had the fear factor, and now she wants this. She wants to become one with her husband, and it's so cute, so adorable. I highly, highly recommend this. It is a very slow burn. If you can handle miscommunication tropes and multiple coitus interruptuses that actually further prolong the story, it's not just annoying coitus interruptuses, they prolong the story. This is a great one, and this is the first in a series. It is the first in the Highlanders series, I believe is what it's called. And I do actually plan on continuing with this series, but this was a great start to it, and this is definitely a couple that's very, very cute and very, very endearing. So I hope you'll go pick this one up for those who don't want a lot of graphic, but just want sweet, but want a little bit of reality to their first time experience. Something that you can relate to. The next book I have here is Abby Glines' Until Friday Night. This is the first installment in the Field Party series, and this is a high school football romance. We follow Wes and Maggie. Wes is losing his dad to prostate cancer, and Maggie has witnessed some trauma in her life, which has caused her to be a self-imposed mute. She doesn't speak to anybody, but she'll speak to Wes because Wes needed it. And together they form this beautiful, really sweet, really small town romantic romance. And we do have a first time, and it is so sweet. It's a very sweet one. There's a little bit more graphic into it, but not very much, because the graphicness in this book is actually portrayed in past tense, just previous experiences, encounters. The graphicness is really not surrounded around Maggie and Wes's encounter. Maggie and Wes's encounter is something very sweet and endearing. Wes needs Maggie. Maggie needs him. She knows that this will help him, and she gives herself to him freely, and he cherishes it. That is the reason I picked this book, is because of how Wes handles this gift that Maggie has given him. He realizes that this is a big deal for her too, and with contraception and with clear-cut, I want this, I'm giving this to you of my own free will, verbal consent, the act happens, and it is amazing. It's so well done. It brought so much hope to me. It reminded me of that romance in high school where love was everything and the whole world was at your fingertips, and the guy by your side was it. You know, he was it. It didn't matter what grade you were getting on the next test. It didn't matter what happened the next day as long as you had him. It reminded me of that moment, that first real love where everything hung on them. And yes, being a 35-year-old woman looking at it now, I'm just like, girls, there's other fish to see. Don't worry about it. But I remember being that girl and wanting that feeling so badly. And this book gave it to me. And it gave me a first time that if that was in mine, I would have never regretted it. And you know, it's even mentioned in the book that I'm not going to regret this. We might never go further than this moment. Abby Glines really hit the nail on the head with this scene. Although it's not very graphic, spice rating pretty much a 1 when it comes to that scene. But still, it's all the feelings, all the emotions that are wrapped up into that first time experience for a lot of people. A lot of people put a lot of stake into that one. I am one of them. I planned mine. I planned it. It was very emotional for me. It was very important to me. It was something I did not want to regret later on in my life, and I don't, because of all the emotions and the feelings I had with that person. And this book reminded me of it. And it was just, it was perfect. It was great. It was such a good time. I highly recommend this one as well. And this is the first installment to the Field Party series, and I do plan on continuing with the rest of the series. But if you want a small town romance with a little bit of drama, with not a lot of smut, I mean barely any smut, and just a really sweet HEA, this is it. It's perfect and it's great. And I really hope you'll go check it out. All right. So we've got two not very spicy ones. Let's kick up the spice, because not all first times are sweet and pure. Sometimes they can be funny. My next recommendation is Diana Gabaldon's Outlander. Everybody who's been following me knows that this is my favorite book of all time, but one of my favorite things about this book is there's a first time experience in it, and it's a first time of a male. Claire and Jamie Fraser meet after Claire falls back into time and is forced to marry him to save her own ass. Jamie is a virgin, Claire is not. And that first scene is great, except it's all the build up, their banter beforehand, that really makes that scene, and the banter afterwards. The physical act is great because Jamie Fraser's description is just, he's the king of men for reasons, ladies and gentlemen. He is the king of men for reasons. But after the wedding scene where they're joined, he doesn't force Claire, even though he finally can have sex and he's been a virgin and he's been made fun of by all of his men. He finally can. And he has a woman who actually knows what she's kind of doing, because she's not a virgin, which didn't bother him. I like to state this, that we are in 1700s, and it did not bother him that his future wife was not a virgin. He had zero problem with it. As a matter of fact, he says, I think somebody should know what the hell's going on and what the hell to do. And I thought that was great. There's so much humor invoked into this first time experience. But after the wedding, they have a sit down and they get to know each other. They really get to know each other. And then finally, it's time for bed. And Jamie comes back in and says, are we going to bed or to sleep? And it invokes so much humor within this scene. And then we have that kiss. Oh, where did you learn to kiss like that? I'm a virgin, not a monk. I'll tell you if I need assistance. Ah! Seal the deal for me for Jamie. I knew from then on, I was not going to be disappointed with that man for that simple line right there. Ah, Jamie and Claire, one of my favorites. But that scene in of itself was very, very romantic, very, very sweet. But at the end, when we get past the scene, then we get even further encounters of trying to figure out, how do I actually do this? This is not what I really thought had happened. And I remember having those conversations. I talk to girls about those conversations and they say, yeah, afterwards I'm like, I wasn't really expecting that. That conversation happens because you build this moment up in your head so much, and then finally it happens, and it either lives up to your expectations, or it surpasses them, or it doesn't meet them. And so you sit there and like, well, that wasn't really what I was expecting, I guess. And I loved that was written into the book about that first time experience. Now, graphicness level, spicy level of this scene is probably about a 2. Still not a very spicy, although this book does ratchet it up a lot later on. But that first initial scene is only about a 2. The rest of the scenes later on, well, there's a reason I kept reading this book. And the whole series. Yeah. This book is fantastic. And it is the first installment to the Outlander series, which, as you can see up here, this is the entirety of the series right here that is currently out, minus one book. I'm still waiting on it. But it is definitely a undertaking. It is not one that you want to speed read through. There are so many moving pieces, but this first installment is really building the relationship between Jamie and Frasier. And as the series progresses, then you start getting more political machinations and more exterior drama that affects this couple. But this is the book that solidifies them as a couple. This is the one that they meet and they start forming this romance, and it's super adorable. And I will never forget that first time in this book, just because it was perfect. For them, it was perfect. Claire is serious, but she's headstrong. Jamie is goofy and lovable, and they made for a great first-time experience. For me reading it as a first-timer, on reread, it still was as great as the first time I read it. So definitely recommend this one. If you've never read this series, you need to go read this one. This is great. Even if it's just not for the first time. There are so many other amazing moments in this book, but the first time is definitely worth it. Okay, the next book is a little bit spicier. We're ratcheting the spicy up a lot, and that is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and again, this is a first installment to the Hades and Persephone series by Scarlett St. Clair. And the benefit to this book is that we get the male's perspective in Game of Fate, which is the Hades perspective of this series. So not only do we get the first time in this book, we get Hades' side of it in Game of Fate as well. And that is just spot on. It's amazing. I love it. It's fantastic. Now, mind you, this first time is definitely not your stereotypical high schoolers fumbling around the backseat of a car, okay? This is Hades, god of death, super sexy. This is Persephone, who is invoking her power. She's learning that she has power, and she's discovering her sexuality. They are fated mates, and it is destiny, and they have been teasing the out of each other the entirety of this book. Their first experience is not their first encounter. It's the first time they have sex. Their first encounters are explosive. They're spicy. They leave you wanting. They leave you drooling. They leave you sobbing wet. Oh my God, sobbing wet. And it's just this build up and build up and build up and build up. And then finally you get this scene, and it is explosive. It is amazing. It is power. It is attraction. It is arousing. It is teasing. It is all encompassing. Hades is dominant. Persephone is willing, but yet she's still kind of a brat, which I like. I like it. And it is just, it's fucking exquisite. It is so good. It is what first times, I wish all first times were like, because if all first times were that fucking great, I'd lie about being a virgin a lot more. No, I'm just playing that. Forget that. Don't mind me. No, but it is the stuff. This first time experience is what you build your first time experience to be. Passionate, aggressive, soft, tender, all at the same fucking time. He knows exactly what to do, how to do it, where to put what. You don't look like an idiot flummeling your arms around and not knowing what the hell you're doing, because he knows exactly how to read your body and read your every single thought without you speaking a fucking word, but yet he makes you say it anyway. Oh my God, Hades is epic in this scene. It's so amazing. This is literally one of my favorite firsts I've ever read, and it's epic. It's exquisite, and it's perfect, and I love it, and it sealed this series for me. And it doesn't happen very long in the book, so you have a whole book just to build and build and build, and you're just like, I want it. But for as graphic and as sexy as this first scene is, it is still a first. And after it happens, we see Hades take care of Persephone, because it was Persephone's first. And he understands that there is some pain involved. There is some tenderness that is needed afterwards. And you see him clearly give that to her in only the way the god of death can. And it is nice, it is sweet, and I'm down for it. So this one, spice rating, I'm gonna say a 3 on that scene because there is some level of dominance. There's some holding down and it's quite nice. There's some nice words used on both sides. But it's the aftercare that I really appreciated in this scene. And that's one of the main reasons I picked it, other than the fucking scene is super, super hot. So yeah, definitely a good one. Go check this one out. And then once you read that scene, go read Game of Fate and read Hades' perspective and then find out all of his thoughts on it. And that makes that scene fucking gold. Definitely a good one. And my last recommendation is The Borgos Baby by Jane Henry. This is the first scene for all those kinksters out there who like a little bit more than just the P and the V. They want to have a little more fun on the side. This is a captor-captive romance, the first installment in the Wicked Dom series, and follows Casimir and Sadie. Casimir is the brigadier general of the brothel mafia, and he has kidnapped Sadie to marry her, take her inheritance, and then get rid of her. Except that's not what happens. In his process of training her in the BDSM sort of lifestyle, he starts to fall for her, but he realizes that he is literally everything of Sadie's first. Her first kiss, her first touch, her first orgasm, everything. Everything is claimed by this man. And in the beginning, it is not consensual. It is not consensual, but the first scene, that is 100% consensual. And Sadie has suffered a little bit of Stockholm syndrome. She is the captive and she is starting to fall for her captor. But in that scene, she is willing and she gives herself to him, and he doesn't just fuck her. He loves her. For this being a BDSM book and all of the scenes being BDSM related, whether it is with dominant language, with toys, with chains, with spanking, some form of BDSM, that is the one scene in this book where we really just see two people who have feelings for each other, love each other, and him take care of her in the only the way a dom can take care of a sub going through her first time. And it is perfect. It also comes towards the end of the book where we've had all this buildup and all this teasing and exploring, and you are about to combust yourself. It is well placed, it is well done, and it is fan-freaking-tastic. So I highly recommend this one. This was one of my favorite books that I've read this year so far, and Casimir lives rent-free in my head. This first scene lives rent-free in my head because it's just exquisite, and it's amazing, and it's awesome, and I highly, highly recommend it. So those are my first, guys. These are some of my favorites. I hope you will go check some of these out, and if you do, let me know. But here they are again: Amanda Forrester, Highlanders Sword, Until Friday Night by Abby Glines, A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, Borgos Baby by Jane Henry, and then of course, Diana Gabaldon's Outlander. I hope you guys will go check some of these out and let me know. That's what I have for you guys today. I will see you guys all soon with another recommendations video.